Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Jai Shri Krishna Radha Shiv Sadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda. Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiv Sadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda. Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiv Sadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Bolo Radhe Golokananda Bhagwan ki
Jai. So we have to finish up 54, Gajendraji, the last 3 paragraphs of the purport. You just reread the verse first and then go to the last 3 paragraphs.
Okay. Bhaktya shakya aham avam vidho arjuna gyatum drishtum cha tatvena pravestum cha parantapa. My dear Arjun, only by undivided devotional service can I be understood as I am, standing before you, and you thus can be seen directly. Only in this way you can enter into the mysteries of my understanding.
Right. So we go down to the paragraph that begins with the word elsewhere. It's the third from the last paragraph. Elsewhere, yes, that's it. Elsewhere it is said, Yatra Vatirnam Krishnakyam Param Brahma Narakriti. The supreme absolute truth is a person. His name is Krishna, and sometimes he descends on this earth. Similarly, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, we find a description of all kinds of incarnations of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and in this list, the name of Krishna also appears. But then it is said that this Krishna is not an incarnation of God, but is the original Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. Ete chamsa kala pumsam Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam.
Similarly, in Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says, Mata Parakaram Nanyat. There is nothing superior to my form as the personality of Godhead Krishna. He also says elsewhere in Bhagavad Gita, Aham Adir Hidevanam. I am the origin of all the demigods. And after understanding Bhagavad Gita from Krishna, Arjuna also confirms this in the following words. Param Dhamma, Param Dhamma, Pavitram Param Bhavam. I now fully understand that you are the Supreme Personality of the Godhead, the Absolute Truth, and that you are the refuge of everything.
Manish Prabhu?
Yeah. Therefore, the universal form which Krishna showed to Arjuna is not the original form of God. The original is the Krishna form. The universal form with his thousands of heads and hands is manifested just to draw the attention of those who have no love for God. It is not God's original form. The universal form is not attractive for pure devotees who are in love with the Lord in different transcendental relationships.
Shiva, would you be able to read?
Yes, Prabhuji, I can read. The Supreme Godhead exchanges transcendental love in his original form of Krishna. Therefore, to Arjuna, who was so intimately related with Krishna in friendship, this form of the universal manifestation was not pleasing. Rather, it was fearful. Arjuna, who was a constant companion of Krishna's, must have had transcendental eyes. He was not an ordinary man. Therefore, he was not captivated by the universal form. This form may seem wonderful to persons who are involved in elevating themselves by fruitive activities, but to persons who are engaged in devotional service, the two-handed form of Krishna is the most dear. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Any questions or comments? Bill?
No question?
Okay, well,
Yeah.
if no questions, I have a question. And that question is, what is the evidence? What does Prabhupada cite here that proves that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead? His form is more important than the universal form. There are a few things but what can we say? Why is Krishna's form as Krishna so much more? I mean, it's, the universe, it's the original form of God. But why, what reasons does Prabhupada give for why the universal form is not attractive to devotees and why Krishna's form is the greatest?
Yeah.
You just highlighted one there, Gajendra. Gajendra just highlighted the Supreme Godhead exchanged his transcendental love in his original form of Krishna. So
Right. So
there's no universe, you can't exchange any love with the universal form. It's not possible.
You can
And
make
Arjuna
a
was-
personal relationship.
You can't have a personal relationship. It's impossible to have a personal relationship with the universal form.
In fact, Arjuna was getting scared of that form.
Absolutely.
He was scared and he was also amazed. He was in wonder of seeing the form. And it is also said here by Srila Prabhupada in the purport that the universal form is for those who don't have any love for Krishna.
Yeah.
And they need to be convinced that Krishna is the Supreme, but they have no love for him.
Yeah, actually, the poor Prabhupada says here, the universal form with the thousands and thousands of heads and hands is manifest just to draw the attention of those, as Rudrani was saying, who have no love for God. It is not God's original form. So if someone doesn't love God, then if God wants to catch their attention in some way, he does this big show. And they may go, wow, there's something bigger than me.
But like, don't you think that Krishna said that, you need a special eyes to see that form? Because
Yes.
if they are not devotee or not, they don't have love for Krishna, how can they see it?
Well, that's true. Therefore, certain people, when they saw the universal form or some aspect of it, like Duryodhana, they didn't believe it. But Prabhupada makes the point that the universal form is being described in the Bhagavad Gita, is shown to Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita, so that the description is made there so that the people will read about that and hear about that. And he makes the point earlier in this chapter where he says that although Arjuna got divine eyes, he didn't get a divine heart. The divine eyes allowed him, divine means like the demigods here. Divine eyes means you could see like the demigods or have this higher vision, but he didn't think like the demigods because the demigods don't have that close relationship with Krishna. And if Arjuna had been given the heart of a demigod, then he would have been more attracted he wouldn't have had that same love for Krishna in his two-handed form. He would have been overwhelmed by that other form. So it's a good point, though.
We find ourselves living in mundane reality on the physical plane, and while we have, many of us, of course, have peak experiences where the universal form is sometimes accessible for a bit of until it maybe fry us. But it's really possible to experience very high energy states. But we come down, we live in a body, we live in a dualistic world.
Yes.
And to function in that world and make spiritual progress, we really do need a relatable form of God. And it's not that the universal form is not, dazzling and amazing, wonderful, but we're in school here. We're in the chop wood, carry water phase, and by the personal presence of a personality of Godhead, that is really effective in no matter what our path is, no matter what form that takes. And we're really blessed to have this very high aspect of it. Anyway, that's
Bill, you're right, because the thing is that Krishna comes in this very wonderful form, and it's described that he's medium-sized. Because the universal form or big forms of Vishnu, they're huge and they're inaccessible, and Paramatma is tiny and you can't see him. But Krishna, he has this Narvat human-like form, and it's his original form. And the point is that that's relatable for us. And I was thinking, as you were speaking, you were mentioning about the material world and how we're all living here. And I was thinking about trying to relate this with COVID. We're living at times, and maybe again, we will again, in our little bubbles, so that we were protected from the COVID. So as devotees, we have a Krishna bubble, and we want to be protected from the virus of materialism. And so we keep ourselves in this little Krishna bubble. And the Krishna bubble is the kirtan, the japa, the temple, the devotees, prasadam, our Zoom conferences. And this way we don't get, and we don't have to wear a mask all the time either. So we're in the Krishna bubble, and we can experience this wonderful Krishna bubble and make advancement in Krishna consciousness.
Srila Prabhupada and all the acharyas in our mind talk about how association is everything. It depends on whom we associate with, then we are going to take on certain characteristics and certain qualities. Now, if we associate with pure transcendental personalities, that would also be a person that we're going to be taking characteristics and qualities from, especially imbibing the spirit of devotion into their hearts. So it's extremely important, whether we call it a bubble or something else, that we are sharp enough to choose to associate with those who are really advanced spiritually. It's just a matter of proper intelligence, proper use of intelligence.
I could go to the first paragraph. It ends with this verse, Ete Chamsa Kala Pumsam Krishna Bhagavan Swayam. And that is from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 3, verse number 28. And this is a very important verse. It goes, Ete Chamsa Kala Pumsam Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam Indrari Vakulam Lokam Mridayanti Yuge Yuge. And he says, Prabhupada's translation is all the above mentioned incarnations. This is the chapter on the different incarnations, the Boar incarnation and Nrsingadev and Vamanadev and Buddha and many others, Hayagriva. I mean, there's many more than just the 10 Das avatars. All of the above mentioned incarnations are either plenary portions or portions of plenary portions of the Lord. But Lord Sri Krishna is the original personality of Godhead. All of them appear on planets whenever there is a disturbance created by the atheists. The Lord incarnates to protect the theists. So that is an important verse. And then also, he speaks a little farther down here. He speaks another place here. Mata Partram Nanyat. That's the next paragraph. And this is Bhagavad Gita 7:7. And this is a very interesting verse. Mata Parataram Nanyat Kinchid Asti Dhananjaya Mai Sarvam Idam Protam Sutre Managana Iva. And Krishna is speaking to Arjuna. O conqueror of wealth, there is no truth superior to me. Everything rests upon me as pearls are strung on a thread. And of course, as we see a pearl necklace, we don't see the thread. So we think, oh, those pearls are beautiful, but without the thread in there, the pearls are all over the floor. So that isn't going to be very beautiful. So Krishna holds everything that's beautiful in this world together. But one more beautiful than this world, of course, is the spirit. And lastly, one more verse, and that is Param Brahma, Param Dhamma, Pavitram Paramam Bhavan. That's Bhagavad Gita, chapter 10, verses 12 and 13. And this is after Krishna speaks the 4 seed verses of the Bhagavad Gita in the previous verses where he declares his supremacy. And Arjuna says, I'll just read the English here. You are the supreme personality of Godhead, the ultimate abode, the purest, the absolute truth. You are the eternal, transcendental, original person, the unborn, the greatest. Now the second half is important. All the great sages such as Narada, Asita, Devala, and Vyas confirm this truth about you. And now you are yourself declaring to me, and Prabhupada says, Arjuna is basically saying, I'm not just saying it, but all the great sages say it. So he's declaring his supremacy, and everything about him is supreme. His home, his dham, his abode, his associates, that's all supreme. So if there's no more questions, we can go on to 55.
मत कर्म कृणम त परमो मद तक्त संग वर्जित निर्वैरः सर्वभूतेषु यः समामेति पांडव. My dear Arjun, he who engages in my pure devotional service, free from the contaminations of fruitive activities and mental speculation, he who works for me, who makes me the supreme goal of his life, and who is friendly to every living being, he suddenly comes to me.
So Gajendraji, before we start, this is a very long purport, but we'll read the first 3 paragraphs, pause, and if there's more time, we can go on. But first 3 paragraphs.
Okay. Yeah, Sejal Mataji.
Anyone who wants to approach the Supreme of all the personalities of Godhead on the Krishna Lok planet in the spiritual sky and be intimately connected with the Supreme Personality Krishna must take this formula as stated by the Supreme himself. Therefore, this verse is considered to be the essence of Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita is a book directed to the conditioned souls who are engaged in the material world with the purpose of lording it over nature and who do not know of the real spiritual life.
Bill. Ask Bill to read.
Bill?
Okay, the Bhagavad Gita is meant to show how one can understand his spiritual existence and his eternal relationship with the Supreme Spiritual Personality, and to teach one how to go back home, back to Godhead. Now here is the verse which clearly explains the process by which one can attain success in his spiritual activity, devotional service. As far as work is concerned, one should transfer his energy entirely to Krishna conscious activities. As stated in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu Anasaktasya Vishayan Yataram Upanjanata Nirbandha Krishna Sambandhe Yuktam Vairagyam Uchate.
Nice. Sureka ji, will you read?
Well, I can read. Yep.
Sure.
No work should be done by any man except in relationship to Krishna. This is called Krishna karma. One may be engaged in various activities, but one should not be attached to the result of his work. The result should be done only for him. For example, one may be engaged in business, but to transform that activity into Krishna consciousness, one has to do the business for Krishna. If Krishna is the proprietor of the business, then Krishna should enjoy the profit of the business. If a businessman is in possession of thousands and thousands of dollars, and if he has to offer all of this to Krishna, he can do it. This is the work for Krishna.
Seema?
Instead of constructing a big temple for his sense gratification, he can construct a nice temple for Krishna, and he can install the deity of Krishna and arrange for the deity service as it is outlined in the authorized books of devotional service. This is all Krishna karma. One should not be attached to the result of his work, but the result should be offered to Krishna, and one should accept as prasadam the remnants of offerings to Krishna. If one constructs a very big building for Krishna and installs the deity of Krishna, one is not prohibited from living there, but it is understood that the proprietor of the building is Krishna. That is called Krishna consciousness. If, however, one is not able to construct a temple for Krishna, one can engage himself in cleansing the temple of Krishna. That is also Krishna karma. Hare Krishna.
Manish Prabhu?
One can cultivate a garden. Anyone who has land in India, at least any poor man has a certain amount of land, can utilize that for Krishna by growing flowers to offer him. One can show tulsi plants because tulsi leaves are very important, and Krishna has recommended this in Bhagavad Gita. Patram pushpam phalam toyam. Krishna desires that one offer him either leaf or a flower or fruit or a little water, and by such an offering he is satisfied. This leaf especially refers to the tulsi. So one can sow tulsi and pour water on the plant. Thus, even the poorest man can engage in the service of Krishna. These are some of the examples of how one can engage in working for Krishna.
Shiva?
One more paragraph.
One more paragraph, then we'll stop and catch your breath.
Yes, Prabhuji. The word mat parma refers to one who considers the association of Krishna in his supreme abode to be the highest perfection of life. Such a person does not wish to be elevated to the higher planets, such as the moon or sun, or heavenly planets, or even the highest planet of this universe, Brahmaloka. He has no attraction for that. He is only attracted to being transferred to the spiritual sky. And even in the spiritual sky, he is not satisfied with merging into the glowing Brahma Jyoti effulgence, for he wants to enter the highest spiritual planet, namely Krishna Loka, Goloka, Vrindavana. He has full knowledge of that planet, and therefore he is not interested in any other. Hare Krishna.
Sureka ji?
Yep. As indicated by the word Mad Bhakta, he fully engages in devotional service, especially in the 9 processes of devotional engagement: hearing, chanting, remembering, worshipping, serving the lotus feet of the Lord, offering prayers, carrying out the orders of the Lord, making friends with Him, and surrendering everything to Him. One can engage in all 9 devotional processes, or 8, or 7, or at least in one, and that will surely make one perfect.
Okay, we'll stop. Any questions, comments, thoughts?
Yes.
Yes, Bill.
A bit of a quibble about the translation.
Okay.
Sangha Varjita means free from attachment or abandoning attachment. It doesn't really, it's really, it doesn't really mean contamination of food, all that stuff.
Yeah. But you know what it is? This is Prabhupada giving us what we would call an interpreted synonym or word for word. Now you're right, it's free from attachment, but what are we attached to? The things in this world that we're attached to are fruitive activities. We want money, we want to have good things, we want to enjoy life and all that kind of stuff. And then mental speculation is we want to know everything and figure everything out, and therefore we want to be, put ourselves in. So Prabhupada is giving, in a sense, the definition of what we will be attached of in this world, which is fruitive activities and mental speculation.
Well, it's freedom from attachment goes beyond that, though. I mean, those are 2 things that fall into freedom from attachment.
Well, name me something else that
there's a wide range of things that people can be attached to.
Well,
and it's very helpful to have, the idea that, to be able to think through your life and think, well, what is it that you're attached to? Because one time I found myself in a situation where I was involuntarily isolated from the world. I thought, well, I'm a good yogi, I can do this, I'm not attached to anything. Wrong. I didn't have many fruitive activities, and I had plenty of mental speculations, but I was attached to things like food, and conversing with other people, and all sorts of social contacts, and I mean, just an enormous number of little things like the pens that I used to write music with. I was attached to all that stuff. So I think it's very, very helpful to have the universal word.
Rudrani has a point here.
So these are 2 broad categories. And if you look at it closely, you will realize that everything fits into one of the 2 categories. Material activities, material objects, material items, and the desire to control, mental speculation, intellectual endeavors, all of that, everything belongs in one of those 2 broad categories.
And to continue what Rudrani was saying, in the Gita and most of the other books that we read in the Vedic literatures, it talks about bhakti, and it talks about karma, and it talks about jnana.
Krishna says that.
Yeah, and sometimes sometimes yoga is thrown in there, mystic yoga, but these 3 are the categories of activities. So Prabhupada's, in a way, just trying to define it in a certain way here within the yoga understanding. But attachment is true. It can be little things. The pauper is proud of it, of his penny. So everybody is attached to something, unless you're attached to Krishna. But that's a good point. Good point. Any other points? If I could, I would say, let's look at the verse itself. My dear Arjuna, he who engages in my pure devotional service, free from, we could say, attachments, But attachments to what? Fruit of activities and mental speculation. He who works for me, who makes me the supreme goal of his life, and who is friendly to every living being, he certainly comes to me. So this, Prabhupada says right after that, anyone who wants to approach the supreme of all personalities of Godhead on the Krishna Loka planet in the spiritual sky and be intimately connected with the supreme personality Krishna must take this formula, as the supreme stated it's by the supreme himself. So this is the formula right here.
It is also mentioned about Yukta Vairagya.
Yeah, well, yes, and that goes down a little farther, which is a definition, plays right into the idea of pure devotion. So who can define to me what pure devotional service is?
The activity is done for Krishna and not for our sensual pleasure.
That's a good definition. Are we pure devotees yet?
No, not me at least.
It is also having the consciousness and living one's life in a way that is exclusively devoted to the Supreme, in a way that's unmotivated and uninterrupted. In other words, there is no personal motive and there is no cessation, there is no end to it. This approach to the Supreme Lord, there is no personal motivation and there is no breaks. Like today I'm devoted and tomorrow I won't be. Ultimately, we will, that's what we're aspiring to get to pure devotional service. And it does have breaks. Sometimes we're connected, sometimes we're not connected. But when the connection is exclusively to the Supreme Lord without any breaks or without any personal motive, that is defined as pure devotional service.
On the other hand, that's true. On the other hand, if we're initiated by a pure devotee or someone in the line of pure devotional service, and as Rudrani says, we are practicing without breaks as much as possible, then Prabhupada gives the example of the ripe mango and the unripe mango.
Green mango, yeah.
And green mango.
Mm-hmm.
The green mango will become ripe as long as you keep it on the tree. So keep it on the tree. So we got to stay in the tree of devotion. It's connected, and eventually, through the process, we will become a fully realized pure devotee. Till then, we're Vaishnava Praya. We're aspiring to become Vaishnavas, because technically speaking, we could say that Vaishnavas only are those persons who have reached a certain level of Krishna consciousness, at least steadiness, nishta. Yes.
But this is what we're aspiring to come to. And aspiration doesn't mean automatically realization. It means attempt, effort, endeavor, sense of purpose, sense of direction, understanding what the goal is, and moving in that way. And ultimately, maybe several lifetimes, we'll get there. And Krishna says, if you do this, then I assure you that you will come to me. He's giving us assurances. In the Bhagavad Gita, there's so many times where Krishna is giving us promises that obviously they are going to come to pass. Just a matter of time.
Okay, we're jumping down to this, and actually that's a good place because I was going to bring this up. As indicated by the word mat bhakta, he who fully engages in devotional service, specifically in the 9 processes of devotional service, hearing, chanting, remembering, worshiping, serving the lotus feet of the Lord, offering prayers, carrying out the orders of the Lord, making friends with him, and surrendering everything to him, one can engage in all the 9 devotional processes, or 8 or 7, or at least 1. Now, we have examples of these personalities who engaged in these different forms of devotional service. And we can go through them here. No, it's not. It's you're going to go on screen. It's off something else. The first one is Emperor Parikshit, King Parikshit, he attained the spiritual platform simply by hearing from an authority as Sri Shukadev Goswami. Now the second one you can see up there is chanting. Who's that?
Prahlad Maharaj?
No. He's on the list, but not there.
Oh,
second-
I think,
Who recited the Bhagavatam?
Narad. Is it Narad?
no, it's a Vyasadeva.
Shukadev Goswami.
Sukadev
Dev
Goswami.
Goswami.
So
Yeah.
first person is Parikshit. He hears from Shukadev Goswami. The second one is Shukadev Goswami who
Yeah.
speaks to Parikshit. So Sri Shukadev Goswami attained the same simply by recitation verbatim of the transcendental message which he received from his great father, Sri Vyasadeva. Now the third one is
Remembering.
who remembered Krishna all the time and attained perfection.
That is Prahlad Maharaj.
Prahlad, yes.
Yeah.
Prahlad, because remember he was being thrown off cliffs and stomped on by elephants.
Yeah, right.
So he didn't remember Krishna always. He attained perfection, success by remembering the Lord constantly in pursuance of the instructions given by Sri Narada Muni, the great saint and devotee. Now the next one is worshiping.
Worshipping.
Who has attained?
So, Mira.
Mirabai.
Well, Mira may have done that, but she's not one of the classic ones from the Bhagavatam.
Hanuman.
No, Hanuman's on the list, but he's not here. This is someone who massages the feet of the Lord.
That is serving the lotus feet of the Lord.
Lord,
That is his friend.
It's
Lakshmi
Narayan's
Devi.
consort, Lakshmi Ji, the goddess of fortune,
Lakshmi Ji is
attained success simply by sitting and serving the lotus feet of the Lord. So worshiping. Now the
so
next.
worshipping and serving
No,
lotus feet is
sorry.
separate. Yeah.
Oh, excuse me. It's out of order here.
Wo-
Serving the lotus feet. I'm sorry.
Right. So
Order and the
worshipping-
order up there is different. Worshiping is I'm looking at.
They're both.
No. Serving the lotus feet of the Lord. That's
that
Lakshmi.
is
Now
Lakshmi.
worshiping.
Yeah.
That's Lakshmi. Your order is different than my little thing here on the side. Now worshiping. It's a king. His wife was Archie.
Prithu Maharaj.
Prithu Maharaj by worshiping.
Yeah.
So Lakshmi by serving the lotus feet, and Prithu by worshiping.
Worshipping.
And then offering prayers. Sorry for that.
That is Hanuman.
No, he's somebody in Vrindavan Leela.
Oh, carrying out of the orders is Hanuman.
Yeah.
So,
Yes, that is true.
offering
Who was the one
prayers.
who offered prayers in Krishna Leela, and he attained perfection that way?
Uddhavji? No.
Well, I'll give you another clue. He did something that no one in Vrindavan liked.
Oh, Akrura.
Akrura, right. He took Krishna away. And
Yeah.
and he offered prayers to the Lord and attained perfection that way. Now the next one is carrying out the orders of the Lord, and that's been mentioned. He's a great devotee. He's special because of all the people on this list, he's the only one who's not a human.
Yeah. That is Hanuman.
Hanuman, the famous non-human devotee of Lord Sri Ramachandra, he attained success simply by carrying out the orders of the Lord. Now, friendship.
Sudama.
But that's true. He could be that person, but he's not the one listed.
Arjuna.
Arjuna, yes. Sudama certainly could be considered, but actually the list in the Bhagavatam is Arjuna, the great warrior, attained the same perfection simply by making friends with the Lord, who delivered the message of Bhagavad Gita to enlighten Arjuna and his followers. And the last one, someone who gave everything, surrendered everything, is who?
Bali
Bali
Maharaj?
Maharaj.
Bali Maharaj. So much so that he even had to surrender his body because when Vaman came and said, I just want 3 steps of land, he said, well, okay, well, you're being silly. But he then stepped 1 step across the whole universe. 2nd step, kicked a hole in the universe. And the 3rd step said, where's it going to go? He says, on my head. So he surrendered everything and was pushed into hell. But Krishna was always with him. So, and also then Prahlad Maharaj came to see him, and he was, anyway. So those are the 9 different processes of devotional service. The easiest ones for us at this point in our devotional service, well, the ones most available are hearing and chanting. We can chant nicely, kirtan and japa, and we can read nicely, and we can hear from authorities like our Gurudev or Prabhupada. And in that way, it will spark this devotional fire in our hearts. So I think we've run out of time, but I think it was a nice discussion.
So we'll hear the Kirtan, Prabhuji?
Yeah, time for the kirtan.
Okay, so we'll hear 5 minutes Kirtan.
Wonderful.
You're wonderful. I always look forward to your nice kirtans.
Hey Govinda,
Haribo.
Hari Bol.
That was really nice.
Mhm.
Who was singing there? I
That was
It was saying Gauramani Mataji.
Gaurmani Mataji.
okay. Gorvani. Okay, that's very nice.
Nice.
Anyway, I hope everybody.
Thank
have a
you,
good week.
Prabhuji, for bringing such a nice kirtan. You every time so innovative, bring from very nice kirtans.
Yeah, he always plays great
Really
kirtan.
pleasing.
It's all there.
And I hope everybody has a good weekend. And thanks for coming
And-
online.
Thank you.
And
Are
we
you
Thank
welcome,
you
gonna
for
be
being
down
here.
next week, Gajendra?
and we welcome Surekha ji to the group.
Yes, thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you for coming on and joining us.
Thank you
And,
for doing your association.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Next
thank
time.
you. Thank you for joining. And you'll be facilitating next week, Gajendra?
Yeah, we'll talk about that. We'll
Okay.
figure
Anyway,
out.
one way or another, we'll be on Zoom next week, and maybe before the weather gets cold, we'll have a nice kirtan. But everybody stay healthy and happy, and we'll see you later. Hare Hare Bol.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Jai Krishna.
Hare Krishna.